So we'll start off with. I was thinking when I heard the title, you are sort of at this moment Christianity's answer to Andrew Tate. Are you happy with that? That could be a little moniker that you could put in. Is that something you would like to have in your bio? You could put it in Twitter or something like that.
I would now, actually. Andrew Tate had not become a real phenomenon when the book came out, and
is that right?
If he had, I certainly would have put him in there. I'll tell you why. So not long ago, I got an email from a former graduate student who is now teaching high school. And she said, right. All of my male students are into Andrew Tate. They're even using quotes from Andrew Tate in their yearbook. And I said, well, where do you teach? She said, at a classical Christian high school.
Really?
And so that was a bit of a shock, that even young Christian men are starting to look up to these influencers like Andrew Tate. And the reason that's a problem for anyone who doesn't know, some people still don't know who he is, he attracts young people because he does talk about being fit and being financially successful. Mm-hmm. But it turns out that he's successful because he runs an OnlyFans company where he basically gets young girls to do, and he himself calls it pornography. He gets young girls to do pornography, and he calls himself a pimp. So he's not hiding it at all, but unfortunately, a lot of young men I've noticed are they're getting caught up in his influence without quite realizing just how immoral he is. And so it is very important that as Christians we start having better models that we can present to young men.
Absolutely, yeah. Actually, I mean that's a great place actually to begin our conversation, which is so because I think we are seeing something there. We're seeing something in culture. Where there's been various forms of say feminism and that movement, but really quite intensely so over the last 50 years. And yet what we're seeing in the very younger generations is that young men are starting to become quite reactionary, and Andrew Tate would be a good example of that. There would be some healthier examples, so the likes of say Jordan Peterson, again not a Christian but not in any meaningful sense anyway, but a healthier, response to that. What is happening in our culture when it comes to men? What are they seeing and what are they reacting to? And what is this toxic war on masculinity, as you've titled the book?
Yeah, well, my attention was caught when I first started researching this by some really hostile passages in the public media. So, for example, the Washington Post had an article titled, "Why Can't We Hate Men?" And I thought, really? In a respected publication? Or a Huffington Post editor tweeted, #KillAllMen. You can buy t-shirts that say, "So many men, so little ammunition." And books that come out with titles that are very blunt, like, I Hate Men, and No Good Men, and Are Men Necessary? And then it turns out that even some men are jumping on the bandwagon. A fairly well-known male book writer wrote, "Talking about healthy masculinity is like talking about healthy cancer."
Wow. And
then there's one that's not in the book, but you might have seen it because it was in the news. Did you see when the director of the movie Avatar said testosterone is a toxin that you have to work out of your system? So you say, what's happening to men? Well, one study I saw said that 46% of men, that's almost half of men, say that they agree with the statement, "Today's society seems to punish men just for acting like men." And so that's the reaction I think we're starting to see, is that men do feel defeated, beaten down. I quote a psychotherapist who writes regularly for the Wall Street Journal, and she said, especially younger men, they're coming into my practice now, and they're feeling demoralized and beaten down and defeated because they feel like they're growing up in a culture that's hostile to masculinity. And even at my school, I teach at Houston Christian University, and when I told my class I was writing a book on masculinity, one of the male students shot back, "What masculinity? It's been beaten out of us." Whoa. Wow. So even in the Christian world, men are feeling this sense of hostility. And so that certainly is one of the reasons I wanted to write the book, is I wanted to say, where is this coming from? You can't really stand against a social trend unless you ask, where did it come from? How did it develop? And so that's what I wanted to investigate.